that was pretty much the NBA yesterday during its trade deadline yesterday. The NBA made in a massive amounts of moves, and I'm going to discuss every single one of them that has occurred yesterday, including the two big trades that the Celtics did in efforts to make their team better for this season. In terms of their moves from yesterday, it seems like the Celtics are serious about contending this year despite their miserable and abysmal current seeding situation as they stand 21 and 23. But we are going to discuss everything in a well overdue Celtics edition of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. So if you're interested, if you want to hear more about the Celtics and what they did, and including the NBA and what moves were made around the league, stay tuned. This is the episode for you. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. I am your host, James Murphy, aka Murph, and you can find me on Twitter and on Instagram at Murphs_BostonST, where the ST stands for Sports Talk. If you're watching on YouTube, please leave this video a like rating if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you're new to the channel or if you haven't already. Guys, oh my gosh. I don't know if you kept up with the NBA news yesterday, what happened, but there were, oh my god, there were so many trades. There were 16 trades yesterday in the NBA. 23 teams involved with 46 rostered players moved. That is a record for each of those categories, trade, teams, and players moved, in the past 35 years on deadline day. Wow. So I'm going to go over every single trade that was made from the NBA yesterday, but I'm first going to touch upon the two Celtics trades that were made, and then I'm going to come back to them and talk more about them in detail. So first, the simple one between the Boston Celtics and the Orlando Magic, where the Magic send over Evan Fournier, who is a guard, and in return, the Celtics send Jeff Teague and 2 future second-round picks. Now, it is deemed most likely that Jeff Teague will get waived by the Magic, so essentially they're just getting 2 second-round picks for Evan Fournier, who is on an expiring contract. I'll talk more about Evan Fournier in a minute, but the big trade for the Celtics was a 3-team trade, including the Washington Wizards and the Chicago Bulls. So the Celtics get Luke Kornet and Mo Wagner, with Wagner coming from the Bulls and Kornet coming from the Wizards. The Bulls will receive center forward Daniel Tice, guard Javonte Green, and Troy Brown Jr. The Wizards will receive Daniel Gafford and Chandler Hutchinson. That will conclude, that three-way trade right there between the Celtics, Bulls, and Wizards. But I will go more into that in a little bit. I do want to run down the entire trade of all the trade transactions really that were made across the NBA yesterday on March 25th, which was the trade deadline for the National Basketball Association. I'm going to run through it quickly. Probably not going to talk too much about it unless there's one that's really, piques my interest, but let's just get into it. So trade between the Orlando Magic and the Denver Nuggets, where the Nuggets receive Aaron Gordon and Gary Clark, and the Magic receive Gary Harris, RJ Hampton, and future first-round picks. The Miami Heat and the Houston Rockets completed a trade where the Miami Heat get Victor Oladipo in return for Kelly Olynyk, Avery Bradley, and 2022 draft pick swap. I think that's a steal for the Miami Heat. I know Oladipo's not who he once was when he was with the Pacers at the height of his career. That knee injury, or I guess it's technically a quad injury, kind of really derailed him, and being on the Rockets, wasn't really the best situation for him. But him and Wall were a relatively nice combo. It's just that team as a whole is just not not good. Let's just simply put it. They're not good, all right? I'm trying to be nice and come up with words here to make anybody feel better who might be fond of the Rockets, but let's just be honest, they're not good. So Oladipo going to Miami, that's a huge pickup for them. The Dallas Mavericks and the New Orleans Pelicans made a trade as well, where the Mavericks get JJ Redick and Nicolo Melli, and in return, the Pelicans get James Johnson, Wes Iwundu, 2021 second-round pick, and cash considerations. The Clippers and the Hawks made it a deal as well, where the Clippers will receive Rajon Rondo. In return, the Hawks will get Lou Williams, a 2023 second-round pick from the Clippers via Portland, and a 2027 second-round pick from the Clippers, and cash considerations. Now, the Clippers are obviously in win-now mode. They don't have a lot of first-round picks to trade because of that big Paul George trade they made with the Thunder just a couple years ago where they traded 5 first-round picks and like a few swaps. So their first-round picks are kind of tied up right now. So really all they had to work with was second-round picks, but they were able to get Rondo in return for Lou Williams. It's an interesting move right there because Lou Williams is the epitome of the sixth man. Excellent scorer off the bench, but is that something that the Clippers need right now? It apparently isn't, and they want a floor general in Rajon Rondo to kind of lead that unit between Kawhi, Paul George. It's going to be very interesting to see how he melds over there with his second Los Angeles team. I was kind of hoping the Celtics could make a small move for Rondo just to bring him back here to Boston, because the Celtics could need a floor general themselves. They could use a leader, someone with experience, and I think Rondo fits that mold, who's someone who is pass first, score second kind of guy. But the Clippers definitely, made an upgrade there because Lou Williams is a scorer, and that is not something that the Clippers need at this point. The Denver Nuggets and the Cleveland Cavaliers made a trade where the Nuggets get JaVale McGee, and in return the Cavaliers get Isaiah Hartenstein and 2 future second-round picks. The Golden State Warriors and the Charlotte Hornets made a trade where the Hornets get Brad Wanamaker, shout out former Celtic, a 2022 second-round pick from Toronto via Philadelphia, and cash considerations. Meanwhile, the Warriors get in return 2025 second-round pick from Hornets, which is a top 55 protected. Now, I gotta sit here for a second and think. Top 55 protected. There's 60 draft selections in every draft. There's 30 teams. Each team gets 2 rounds. 30 times 2 is 60. So the Warriors get a 2025 second round pick from the Hornets, but it's top 55 protected. So if this second round pick falls anywhere between 31, which is the first pick in the second round, and 55, it goes back to the Hornets. But if it falls 56, 7, 8, 9, 60, then the Warriors will get that pick. I don't understand this move at all. I really don't understand this move at all from the Warriors. Are they just trying to shed some money for Brad Wanamaker? Okay, I'll get that. I mean, they're just trying to clear some salary cap. That's fine. But you're also sending over cash, so I guess you kind of have to make it a little bit more valuable. And I guess in return, you could care less about that second round pick. That's just very odd. Whatever. I'm just going to move on. The Toronto Raptors and the Sacramento Kings made a trade where the Kings get Terrence Davis and the Raptors get a 2021 second round pick. The Utah Jazz trade a future second round pick to the Raptors in return for Matt Thomas. The Spurs make a trade with the Golden State Warriors where the Spurs get Marquise Chris and cash considerations, and the Warriors get the draft rights to Katie Lalani. No, I don't know. I think a European player. But the Warriors are trying to, save some money here, but they're dishing out cash considerations to both the Spurs and the Hornets. Very questionable moves. Could they have traded Brad Wanamaker because they got the draft rights to Katie Lalani? Sure. I don't know what the Warriors are doing over there. How the mighty have fallen. The Sacramento Kings made another deal as well, and when they trade away Corey Joseph, a 2021 second-round pick, a 2024 second-round pick to the Detroit Pistons for Delon Wright. The Sacramento Kings are back at it again, where they trade Nemanja Bjelica. Oh, God, I know this guy, too. Nemanja Bjelica to the Miami Heat for Mo Harkless and Chris Silva. I was very loud. I'm so sorry. I was very close to the mic. Yeah. Okay, Kings are making some moves. Then, trading some players around. Let's see. A 3-way trade between the Philadelphia 76ers, the New York Knicks, and the Oklahoma City Thunder, where the 76ers get George Hill and Ignas Brazdeikis. The Knicks get Terrence Ferguson, Vincent Poirier, the rights to Emir. I'm not even going to pronounce it. I'll spell it, all right? There's no consonants in the middle. Prldzic. Emir Prldzic. So Take that for what it's worth. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry. The Knicks also get a 2021 second round pick and a 2024 second round pick protected, a top 55 protected because it's protected through numbers 31 and 55. I don't know why the other trade didn't say that as well, but okay. All right, whatever. And to round off that trade, the Oklahoma City Thunder get Austin Rivers, Tony Bradley, a 2025 second round pick from the 76ers, a 2026 second round pick from the 76ers as well. I know I mentioned the Oklahoma City Thunder just a few minutes ago when I was talking about the Paul George trade with the Clippers. They have an abundance of first-round picks. They have an abundance of swaps with the Clippers, and now that they're amassing second-round picks as well, they were competitive last year. They're kind of in a rebuild this year. Let me check the standings real quick in the West. They're 19 and 25. They're 4 games out of the 8th seed. But, they're obviously in rebuild mode, and they are making a bunch of moves, getting a bunch of draft picks, and I think they're going to be good in a few years, hopefully. Let's see. The Portland Trailblazers trade away Gary Trent Jr. and Rodney Hood to the Toronto Raptors for Norman Powell. The Bulls and the Magic made a trade between themselves, where the Bulls get Nikola Vucevic and Al-Farouq Aminu, and the Magic get Wendell Carter Jr., Otto Porter Jr., and 2 future first-round picks. And that wraps up all of the NBA trade deadline trades that occurred. And just to recap, there were 16 trades made, 23 teams included, and 46 rostered players moved. Again, that is the most in each category in the past 35 years on deadline day. Holy smokes, a lot of players getting moved, a lot of players going from one team to another, a bunch of teams trying to make moves for the future, trade away expiring contracts, get some draft picks, make a push for the playoffs. A lot of everything is going on, and the Celtics were in the middle of that, which is good. Danny Ainge made his first in-season trade since 2015 when he brought in Isaiah Thomas from the Phoenix Suns that year. And I'm not going to complain about the moves. I mean, I wish there was more. I mean, you get Luke Cornett, Mo Wagner, and Evan Fournier. I think Evan Fournier is going to be a great addition. It'll be interesting to see if he comes off the bench or if he starts. He might come off the bench, early on, just, he can kind of get up to speed and get caught up, get his rhythm with the teammates. I do think he should be the starting 2 guard and not Marcus Smart, because I like to see Marcus Smart come off the bench, where I think he would be a lot better. His skill set would be better, especially being a defensive weapon. I feel like if he comes off the bench and Evan Fournier starts, then Marcus Smart, who has some offensive skill. I know I've talked trash about his shooting and whatnot, how he thinks he's the guy on the team, but do that with the second unit. And then obviously come the fourth quarter, if you're in a tight game and you need Smart to be in there, then you make adjustments accordingly throughout the game. But I think Evan Fournier would be a nice little addition to the starting rotation as well, given another scorer. He's averaging around 20 points a game, and I think this is a good addition for the Celtics. Can I see Evan Fournier coming off the bench to provide that off-the-bench scoring? Yes. I don't think it'd be ideal long-term. But we'll see what happens with the rotation, especially including, Fournier, Wagner, and Cornett. But I do want to touch upon one thing really quickly about the Evan Fournier trade. Since he's making roughly $20 million this year, the Celtics had to use part of the trade exception that they acquired from losing Gordon Hayward to the Charlotte Hornets. So I don't know the exact number, but part of their trade exception was used to acquire Evan Fournier. Hopefully, with the trade deadline now gone, they'll be able to use some of that in next offseason when they look to trade or sign whoever that may be come then. But interesting side note that Danny Ainge did push some chips, not all, but some chips into the pot in order to take a little gamble. So just going over Evan Fournier real quick, he has played in 26 games, starting 26 games. He is averaging 30.3 minutes or so a night. He averages 19.7 points per game. So let's just call it 20 to make ourselves feel good. His field goal percentage is .46, so 46%, not too bad. His three-point percentage is .38, so 38%. I'll take that. It's actually .388, so it's almost 39%. Absolutely would take that. I mean, the Celtics need 3-point scoring. They need a scorer. He's averaging almost 20 points. Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, you give up Jeff Teague, who wasn't really a fit in this system, and 2 second-round picks, so I think that's a win-win. Yes, his contract is up at the end of the season, and you'll most likely not see him re-sign with the Celtics, unless something crazy happens. But it is noteworthy nonetheless. And going back to Jeff Teague, my buddy Sean over at Guiney Sports Pod was mentioning that he wanted Jeff Teague the hell out of Boston, and I guess he got his wish there, moving Jeff Teague to Orlando. So overall, I really like this trade from the Celtics. I know it's only a rental that we're acquiring with Fournier, but it is what it is. You might see him next year. I strongly doubt it, but not going to think about next year. Let's just talk about this year, and I think he will definitely help the team this year. Before I get into any standings and scheduling, I do want to go over the other two players that the Celtics acquired yesterday, and that is Mo Wagner from the Washington Bullets, aka the Wizards. He's been in the league for 3 years. He's only 23 years old, so that's good to see. And going over his stats, he averages 7.1 points per game. His 3-point percentage is 31%, and his field goal percentage is almost 51%. So he's not a scorer, obviously. He's not going to light it up on the scoreboard. He's a big man. He's a big man that can shoot the three ball a little bit. Not too good, but he is developing a shot there. And he's just someone that's can take a back seat, play some defense while, your other scorers on the team take advantage of that. He adds some size where he is 6'11", so he's almost 7 feet tall. He averages 15 minutes a game. He's a perfect rotational piece if he needs to fit in as a starter for a night. He started 13 games where he's played 25 total. I like this move. It's a subtle move. You didn't have to give up too much for him. But I do want to talk about Luke Cornett a little bit. Where we look at him, he is a 7'2" power forward / center. Whoa. Big dude, right? I'm not really too sure what the Celtics were thinking here. I mean, he averages 2 points per game. A bucket. I'm pretty sure you and I could average a bucket a night. But let's go into the other statistics. He 0 games started in 13 games total. He's shooting 33% from the field and 26% from three. Yeah, I don't really know what the Celtics were thinking here. He's only 25, and like I said, you gave up Daniel Tice and Javonte Green in this trade. So, was moving Daniel Tice for Luke Cornett and Mo Wagner a smart move? I guess in terms of micromanaging your salary cap, sure. You get bigger, you get taller. I don't know. I'm trying to be positive about this, and I'm trying to see the light at the end of the tunnel for the Celtics and be like, oh, they acquired Cornett because of this reason, because he can do this very well. Or they traded for Mo Wagner because he can do this very well that Daniel Tice can't do or Javonte Green can't do. I just don't really see it all too well here. I mean, obviously the Evan Fournier trade I think is a home run hit. You needed to make that trade or bring in that kind of player. You were tied to him and Aaron Gordon for a little bit. Obviously, you didn't get Aaron Gordon. I wish we were able to pull the trigger on both Fournier and a Gordon trade, bring them both in for whatever that package would have looked like, but we didn't get our wish there. I'm just very confused about this three-way trade between the Bulls, the Celtics, and the Wizards. I don't know if you guys remember. I think it was Brad Stevens' first year in Boston. His first or second year was like 2014, the playoff run or something like that, where the Celtics had Luigi Detome, whatever his name is. And I don't know why. He was just a bench warmer, and it was like the first round against the Cavaliers. And Brad Stevens wanted to throw something different at the Cavaliers. And so his first bench player he put in was Luigi Detome. His nickname was Gigi. Yeah, right, Gigi. Good game. And he gets in there and he puts up a shot. I think he splashed his first shot. I was like, whoa, okay. And obviously we've seen him a little bit here and there on the team throughout that year. But it's like, why is he in? What is he going to do? He's not going to guard LeBron because obviously LeBron was on the Cavaliers at the time. It's like, this makes no sense. Why is this dude in? He had like a man bun. He had the big beard going. Obviously he's out of the league now. He's probably playing in like Europe or something. But that kind of reminds me about Luke Cornett. So I don't know. I don't really want to talk too much about it. But yes, Evan Fournier, Mo Wagner, and Luke Cornett, all Boston Celtics now after yesterday's trades. And as promised, I will talk about the standings for the Celtics. Now, I did say that I wasn't going to talk about the Celtics unless they became 2 games above 500 or went on a 4-game winning streak. I forget what I said. Or a 4-game winning streak, I think it was, or 2 games above 500. Well, anyways, they made major moves. That was my other exception as well. And currently, as it stands today, as I am recording at 12:43 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on March 26th, 2021, they are 21 wins and 23 losses into the season. That sucks. But don't tell anybody. That really sucks. Yeah, I don't know. I still don't see it. Now, there's a huge gap between the upper echelon teams in the conference. The 76ers, the Bucks, the Nets, they're all well above 500. 32 wins for the Sixers, 29 wins for the Bucks, and 30 wins for the Nets, where the Bucks and the Nets are both 2 games behind the 76ers for first place in the Eastern Conference. Then you got the Hornets at 4, the Knicks at 5, both 9 games back. The Hawks at 6, being 9.5 games back. The Heat 7th with 10 games back, and then your Boston Celtics 8th seed, 10.5 games back. Now, you're not going to get a top 3 seed, so let's not even talk about that discussion. The best you can do is a 4 seed, and you're only a game and a half back from the 4 seed, so it's not all too terrible. And over the past month and a half or so, there's been a lot of fluctuation between the seedings where 8 turns into 5, 5 turns into 11, and this turns into that. And it's like, whoa. So it's really hard to get a gauging projection about where, teams are going to be. I think the Heat made a big move and they got Victor Oladipo, so I could see them locking themselves in, even though they are only 1 game out of being out of the playoffs. Celtics getting Evan Fournier, is that enough to trump you into a guaranteed playoff spot? I don't know. You look at the Knicks, they made moves. Hawks, Hornets, they made moves. So it's like, what? It's going to be tough because every team that's ahead of you made moves. And then you look at the Pistons, the Magic, the Wizards. They're all rebuilding. They're all out of it. But then you get the Pacers, the Bulls, and the Raptors. Even the Cavaliers, who have you lost to? They're breathing down your neck. I mean, the Pacers are half a game behind you. The Bulls are a game and a half behind you. The Raptors, 3 games, and the Cavaliers, 4 games behind you. I mean, anything's really possible in this Eastern Conference. And I just want to brush over the Western Conference to show you that it's a very similar picture over there. The Jazz are 3 games up on the Suns for first place. Clippers 3.5 games back. Lakers 5 games back. Nuggets 6.5. Blazers 6.5. Mavericks 8.5. Spurs 9.5 back from first place. But then you look at the 9 seed, the Grizzlies. They're 10 games back, so they're only a half a game out. The Warriors, they're a game and a half out. The Kings even, they're only 3.5 games out. The Pelicans 3.5 games out. Just talking about the Thunder wanting to rebuild, they're only 4 games out, and they're the 13th seed in the Western Conference. And no, I won't talk about the Rockets or the Timberwolves because they're 20-plus games back from first place. So you even look at the Western Conference, it's also very tight out there. And, the 5 seed could easily turn into the 9th seed. It's just how it goes. There's so much movement. I know there's a bigger gap between, the middle of the pack and the end of the pack in the Western Conference. But still, that 7th, 8th seed is going to be very tight. And that middle of the pack, that 4, 5, 6 is going to be a very tough battle. So it's not just the Eastern Conference that's in this predicament. It's the Western Conference as well. But since you're in the Eastern Conference, all you really care about is the teams around you. Where you see the Hawks, they're a full game ahead of you. And the 6th spot, if you can win 2 in a row and those in front of you maybe lose 2 in a row, you can jump all the way up to the 4 seed, which is something you can't necessarily do in the Western Conference. But winning 2 games and someone in front of you losing 2 games will be detrimental to the standings. This year in the NBA is a very, very intriguing season. It's different than years past because in years past you would have a decent amount of distance between, seeds. Obviously, we're not playing a full season this year, so it's kind of a sprint, not a marathon, just like we saw with baseball in their season last year and like you're seeing with hockey this year. But It's so hard because you want the Celtics to do good. Obviously, you want to be very optimistic and enthusiastic about the trades they made. And yes, I am about that Evan Fournier trade, but that Mo Wagner and Luke Cornett trade was trading Daniel Tice. That is that really going to help you? I mean, Javonte Green is whatever. He wasn't really anything on your team anyways as a bench player. So I would say it clears up a bench player, but you're getting another bench player in return. At least Daniel Tice was a piece to your team. And if you have hope and optimism about Mo Wagner and Luke Cornett, then let's hope and pray that it pays out, right? And trading Tice will hopefully trump Time Lord, couldn't think of his name for a second, Robert Williams, to the starting role as the center where he should be. He hasn't started a single game this year, Robert Williams, and he's averaging 17.2 minutes. This dude needs to average 20 minutes a night, and he needs to start at center moving forward. I don't want to see Tristan Thompson starting at center no more. Now with Tice gone, your starters are probably going to be Kemba, Smart, Brown, Tatum, and hopefully Time Lord. Will Evan Fournier become the starting two guard and Smart goes to the bench? We'll have to see. I don't think early on that'll be the case, but I think as we get closer and closer to the end of the season, that should become the case where Marcus Smart becomes the leader of that second unit and that defensive stud that we all know he is. But back to the standings. Every team in front of you made a move to get better. Every team behind you made a move to, I don't want to say get better, but either look ahead to next season or just kind of fiddle with some pieces. There's no excuse not to get into the playoffs now. If you didn't make any moves this year, that shows us as Celtics fans, you're done for the season. You're packing it in, you're going to play for next year. But although the moves were questionable, you made moves. And that shows us you're serious about winning or trying to win in 2021. That's good. That's optimistic. That's enthusiastic for us. But it's not going to be enough, or at least I don't think. Now, if you think so, I want to hear it. Comment down below on YouTube if you're watching. Comment what you think. Is Evan Fournier, Mo Wagner, and Luke Cornett going to be enough for the Boston Celtics? If you're watching on audio-only platforms, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, Google, whatever, reach out to me on Twitter and on Instagram at Murph_BostonST. Are these moves enough for the Boston Celtics? Me, I don't think so. I think they'll probably get into the playoffs. But, I mean, if they're one of those bottom three seeds, that's 6, 7, 8, they're losing in the first round easily to the 76ers, the 76ers, the Bucks, or the Nets. I try to say them a little too fast. If you can squeeze a 4 seed, you have a legitimate chance to win a first-round matchup against, who knows? It's so hard to project. But there's no excuse not to get to the playoffs this year. There's no excuse to keep sucking. You just need to win a couple games. You got to play some good basketball. Beat the teams you're supposed to beat. Don't lose to the Cavaliers, the Wizards, the Rockets. I mean, the Thunder, whoever sucks into the bottom feeders. The Pistons even. Like, come on. If you're going to lose a good game to a good team. That's acceptable. We can talk about how, that's acceptable and how there's some good things to take away from that. But when you're losing to the Cavaliers, I mean, Sean and I should not be talking about the Celtics losing to the Cavaliers and them being the 9th seed or whatever they were at the time when we recorded our podcast that time. I mean, come on. Does anybody really here in Boston or in New England want to talk about that? No. If you're going to lose to a good team in a good game. But to wrap up my Celtics trade deadline rant, conversation, whatever, Celtics made 2 moves. They brought in 3 players. They traded 3 players. They try to mix and match a little their pieces. There's no excuse for them to miss the playoffs now. Now, I have no idea where they'll finish. Hopefully they can finish at the 4 seed. That'd be very nice. But it's going to be interesting because everyone else in front of you also made moves in an attempt to get better. So let me know what you guys think down below. Like I said, reach out to me on Twitter and Instagram. Your thoughts, comments. Are these moves going to be good enough for the Boston Celtics? Will the Celtics make the playoffs this year? If not, then, well, it was another wasted season of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum because people keep talking about how they're young. They got to develop. Well, they're going to develop and they're not going to be all too young anymore, where those contracts are going to take into effect. Browns is into effect. Tatum takes into effect next year, and it's, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when you're tied up against the cap? You're going to have to trade somebody, whether it's Kemba or Jalen, to bring in other pieces to get a better contract or whatever. But that's a conversation I don't want to have right now. It's a conversation we can have at a later time if we cross that bridge. Quickly, before I shift away from the Celtics, I do kind of want to talk about their upcoming schedule a little bit, where we have the Bucks today, actually. Friday night matchup between the Celtics in Milwaukee against the Milwaukee Bucks. That game tips off at 7:30. I expect a loss there. The Bucks are clearly better than you, and you're completely inferior to them. That's why I don't want the Celtics to have a 6, 7, or 8 seed, because they will probably get the Sixers, Bucks, or the Nets in that first round. And if that's the case, you will lose probably 4 or 5 games. So, hey, if they play good games tonight and, they can squeak it out or whatnot, then maybe we have something to look forward to. They lost to the Bucks by 2 points on Wednesday. Anything's possible. Anything's possible. So we'll just have to wait and see. Then tomorrow, they'll be in Oklahoma City, where they play the Thunder. That game tips off at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Then Monday, you are home against the Pelicans. Wednesday, you're home against the Mavs. Next Friday, you're home against the Rockets. Next Sunday, Easter Sunday, you're home against the Hornets. And, oh my goodness, the home stretch just keeps going. I'm trying to get to Tuesday, April 6th, you're home against the 76ers. Wednesday, April 7th, you're home against the Knicks. Friday, April 9th, you're home against the Timberwolves. And then not until April 11th, you will be away in Denver. So you have like a week and a half of home games after tonight's Bucks game and tomorrow's Thunder game. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games ahead of you. 6-3. Is that too hard to ask for? Ideally, I'd like to see 7-2. I'd like to see. I could see you losing to the Bucks, winning against the Thunder, winning against the Pelicans, winning against the Mavs, winning against the Rockets. Hopefully, you can win against the Hornets. That 76ers game might be a loss. Maybe you can get a win with the Knicks, and then a win with the Timberwolves. Those 9 games, I'd like to see 6-3. I think that's fair. 7-2 would be perfect. But we'll have to see. We're going to have to see how these moves pan out for the Celtics. We're going to have to see what the Celtics look like post-trade deadline. And we're just going to have to hope for the best and that Danny made the right moves this year. But the time is running out for the Celtics. It is, and it's running out fast. And speaking of running out of time, the Bruins had some time off due to having a few players be in close contact with COVID, and that didn't help them the slightest. They were finally back on the ice last night, where they lost to the New York Islanders 4-3 in overtime, so thankfully they escaped with a point. It was their first game since Thursday, March 18th, where they beat the Sabres 4-1. However, moving forward, they play the Sabres tomorrow, actually, and hopefully they can pull out two points there. 2 points. Pepe Le Fou. 2 points. Hopefully I didn't trigger anybody. But anyways, it just doesn't look ideal for the Bruins as of now. Now, there's still so much to consider with the Bruins. There really is. Let me get rid of all this NBA tab so I can talk about the Bruins here. They've played 29 games. That is the least amount of games they have played in the division. The Islanders have played 34. The Capitals have played 32. The Penguins 34. The Rangers 32. Flyers 32. The Devils 31. And the Sabres 32. So you have played less games than the entirety of your division. That can serve you good. That could. Because I've said this numerous times before. You have 37 points. Well, now you have 37 points. The Penguins have jumped up to get 44 points. Now, you've been off for a week or so, a little less, and you missed some games. The Penguins played some games. They've got their points, so have the Capitals and the Islanders. You are currently 7 points behind the Penguins for the 3rd seed. Keep in mind, you have played 5 less games than them. So, in order to jump them, you need to win 4 of those games to get 8 points. That 8 points would put you at 45. You see the math I'm trying to go here? I've said this numerous times, and the math works out with just about any team that has played more games than you, and quite frankly, they all have. So you can only hang on to this math for so long because you're going to have to play games against all of these guys. You're not playing a game against anyone that's not the Islanders, Capitals, Penguins, Rangers, Flyers, Devils, or the Sabres. You're not going to play a game against anyone that's not them. So you got to start winning in regulation and not going into overtime, because going into overtime will bless another team with a point if they lose in overtime. So that's why winning in regulation is so important. But for the Bruins, if you're going to lose, might as well lose in overtime so you can still skate away with the point. Last night, for example, was such a thing. They were dancing with the Islanders all game. Then they lost in overtime where the Islanders will get 2 points and the Bruins only get 1. So what do the Bruins need to do? Now, obviously, they're going to have to catch up and play some games against people. They missed 2 games against the Sabres, so they're going to have to catch up there. They missed a game against the Islanders, so they're going to have to play a game there. It's going to be extremely interesting. Now, from first place, you're 11 games back. You're 11 games back from first place at the Islanders having 48 points, like I mentioned. It's not out of the realm of possibility to still flirt with the top seed in your division. I still think that the second and the third seeds are both viable options. I still feel very comfortable with the Bruins. They are 3 points ahead of the Rangers, who are still very much in it themselves. You're also 3 points ahead of the Flyers, who are also very much in it themselves. So you have to play excellent hockey moving forward. You have to. There's no way around it. If you play bad hockey, you're going to lose and you're going to get beaten by teams that you probably should either win against or teams that you shouldn't lose against. Now, if you can squeak out some good wins against the top of the division, then like last night, that would have been nice. That second point would have been crucial. Now the Islanders would only have 47 because they wouldn't have got that second point. And the Bruins would have 38 where you get that second point. So there's a 2-point swing there. Now you're only down 9 points. And like I said, the difference in games played, 34-29, that's 5 games. You win 5 games all in regulation. That's 10 points. Boom, you're in first place. Just like that. Now, yes, I'm talking out of my ass pretty much with this whole micromanaging the points and the games played and the difference there. But the math still works in the path to, success in your division is there. It's there. Now, you're 4-3-3 in your last 10 games. Obviously, you haven't played in almost a week, so it's hard to kind of gauge where the team is currently at. But I will tell you that where the team is at, they can't score. They cannot score. In the teams that are still in the playoff picture, the Islanders, Capitals, the Penguins, yourselves, the Rangers, and the Flyers, you are significantly less in terms of goals for. Now, goals for is how many goals your team has scored. Goals against is how many goals your team has allowed. Now, in terms of goals allowed, they have allowed the least amount of goals in the entire division, not just the playoff teams. They have only allowed 70 goals. The Islanders have allowed 76, who are behind you in terms of that category. But in goals, 4. The Capitals, 110. The Penguins, 109. The Islanders and the Rangers, 102. The Flyers, 100. And your Boston Bruins, 80. 8-0. You have scored 20 less goals than the Philadelphia Flyers, who are only 3 points behind you for that last spot in the playoffs. 20 less goals. And if you want to talk about being 20 less goals, well, how about your 30 less goals than the Capitals, who are currently second in the division? Now, it does help you that you play excellent defense and you have great goaltending, only allowing 70 goals. But wow, I've been a proponent that the Bruins need to trade for a right shot forward to go on that second line with Krejci and DeBrusk, and getting a top 4 defenseman. I've been a proponent of that. I've had that opinion because they need goal scoring. They need someone on the right side with Krejci. They need another defender to fill depth to give you some star power there. But from here on out, I have to change my opinion about that. You need goal scoring. Your number one focus should be goal scoring for this team. I think your defense is excellent. Your goaltending is great. That's not going to go anywhere. I mean, I guess it technically could. But in terms of where you currently are at and what's currently around you in your division, you have to score goals. You have to score goals. Because losing 4-3 in overtime is nice, but I mean, I don't want to say it's nice, but I mean, the point's nice, but not losing 4-3, you gave up 4 goals, but you only scored 3. I mean, scoring 3 goals, I guess, isn't terrible, but you gave up 4, so your defense and your goaltending wasn't excellent that night. You look at the Sabres last week. You scored 4 goals and you only gave up 1. Nice. You scored 2 goals and you only gave up 1 against the Penguins Tuesday, March 16th. A dub's a dub. And then you lose 4-1 on the Penguins on Monday, March 15th. Yikes. You lose 4-0 to the Rangers on Saturday, the 13th. Yikes. So it's like, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, your defense, your goaltending, when everybody's healthy, of course, will be there. I mean, your forwards can play great defense on the blue line, or I guess in the blue zone. But wow, it's hard for the Bruins to put the puck in the net. It really is. Going into the season, their problem was 5-on-5 scoring. They can kind of do that. Now it seems like their problem is power play scoring, which is something that they were very good last year and the year before. It seems like, just scoring in general now has kind of went dry. And it's hard to put the puck in the net, generally speaking. It really is. I mean, the goalies these days are very good. They're very athletic. They're big. They're strong. And, they protect those pipes like it's nothing. Like their life is on the line. And at the end of the day, what's going to win you games? Scoring the most goals, right? I think when you already have something that's very, very good in terms of your defense and your goaltending, and then you have something that's average, you have to address the average need here. You are 20 goals behind the Philadelphia Flyers, who are 3 points behind you. Now, the Flyers' difference in goal scoring is minus 19, where they've allowed 19 more goals, and you have scored 10 more goals than you have allowed. But you've allowed 70 goals, but you only scored 80 goals. That's not enough. That's not enough, especially if you want to try to beat the Islanders, the Capitals, and the Penguins, and stay ahead of the Rangers and the Flyers. It's just not going to cut it for you. You will lose quickly, and you will not win in a shootout. I don't want to say a shootout, but like a shootout where there's a lot of goals scored, not a physical shootout at the end of the game. In terms of firepower, the Capitals and the Penguins have more of it. The Islanders, I just think they're extremely hot right now. They're a great team, but I don't think, when I think of firepower, I think of the Capitals and the Penguins. But clearly it ain't you, because you're 30 goals behind the Capitals. So what I'm trying to say with all this here is the trade deadline is April 12th. The NBA trade deadline has come and gone. Now let's look ahead to the NHL trade deadline, where the Bruins need to make moves. That trade deadline is 17 days away. 17 days away from today. What do the Bruins need to do? Now, like I said, I've been a proponent of top 6 forward and a top 4 defenseman. Well, I want them to address their forward need. So I have a few names that I want to talk about here, and some of them are likely, possible, and then there's one that's far-fetched that I have mentioned before. So the first one is a right wing Connor Garland from Arizona Coyotes. Now, he has scored 25 points in 31 games, 9 goals, 16 assists. Pretty solid. Can score the puck. He can help score the puck. He comes great. He's a great player with 5-on-5. 18 of his 25 points have come in 5-on-5 play, which is something that the Bruins need help with. Now, obviously, like I mentioned before, that they need help with the power play scoring, but what happens more often during the course of a hockey game is 5-on-5. So that's why I have Connor Garland on my watch list for the Boston Bruins, because as we look over at the Western Division, The Coyotes are currently 4 games out of the last spot in their division. Now, they may not be sellers at the deadline or approaching it. They could be buyers. We'll just have to wait and see their situation there. But Connor Garland is on my watch list for the Bruins. Now, a familiar name for the Bruins is Kyle Palmieri, and he is kind of a Bruins killer. Yikes. But because he plays very well, he steps up his game against the Bruins. I mean, you look at Red Sox, Yankees, they step up their game against each other. Patriots, Dolphins, Patriots, Bill, whatever. You get the picture, right? So, obviously, him being on the Devils for the past couple seasons, he obviously sees the Bruins very well, and he's been playing against the Bruins basically all season, obviously, since it's only division-only games. But he has tallied 20 or more goals for the Devils in each year since he arrived from Anaheim in the 2015-16 campaign. Goal scoring, let's go. He's having a relatively down season, but like I said, it's a shortened season, COVID. I'm not going to give COVID the excuse for, hockey and basketball this year because they're playing relatively full-length schedules. Obviously, it's a little shortened. It's not like baseball where it's only 60 games, where it's like a third of the season. They're playing the majority of their season, so I'm not going to give COVID an excuse here, but it's just something to think of because COVID protocols, you might have to miss some days, whatever. Having a down season, he's in the last year of his contract, so maybe a new location and destination will help him find his groove again, being in the playoff contention on a playoff team. He has a $4.65 million cap hit, so there might be a little bit of maneuvering there that the Bruins might need to do in order to bring him in. Let's look at Taylor Hall. He's a left wing, though, but he is a very good forward nonetheless. He used to be the top overall pick from 2010, and he has 569 career points in 657 games. He can help score. Whether it's through points, whether it's through assists, it doesn't matter as long as it kind of, works one way or another. Anyways, he plays for the Buffalo Sabres, so he's been in the division. He, been playing against the Bruins. Bruins been playing against him. And we actually play against the Sabres tomorrow, so get a good look at him then again. Sabres are obviously in last place in the division. They're 6-22-4. I mean, there's a shit show of a team. There's another player on the Sabres that we'll get into in a few minutes. But according to Taylor Hall, he's 29. He has scored 2 goals this year with 15 assists, so 17 points total in 32 games played. Yes, the goal scoring is down, but he can help, assist the puck around on that tops 2 line as a top 6 forward. And in addition, he's, 29. Like I said, he brings some experience being on the Edmonton and the New Jersey teams for a few years early on in his career. I just think bringing in someone like that who probably wants to kind of win, who is looking to, make a push. He's currently on a 1-year deal with the Sabres for $8 million. Obviously, as we get closer and closer and closer and closer to the end of the season, that $8 million is going to be a lot more manageable to work because that number will be lower for what the Bruins would be acquiring. He is not past his prime yet. Obviously, he still has a lot to give, like I mentioned. But those 2 goals and 16 assists in just 30 games is kind of underwhelming. But it's still a good player to keep your eye on because he's been able to score in the past. I mean, goals early on in his career, 22, 27, 27 again. Then you jump over to 2017-18 where he scored 39 goals. So he can put the puck in the net. That same season, he also had 54 assists. And then 53 in 2013-14 are his 2 career highs in terms of assists. So he knows how to do it. He's been doing it. And just not this year, but you can't blame him because he's on the Sabres, and the Sabres suck. And then the last player I want to talk about on the Sabres as well is obviously Jack Eichel. Now, is a trade for Jack Eichel likely? Probably not. But it's still something interesting to talk about because bringing in a Jack Eichel type player into the Garden, into your team, would put you over the top. That would put you in contention in terms of firepower, like I mentioned earlier, with the Capitals and with the Penguins. Now, a little bit about Jack Eichel. He went to Boston University. He was a first overall pick in the 2015 draft, and ever since he's gotten to the league, he's been a stud. 2015, his first season as a 19-year-old, 24 goals. Year after, 24, 25, 28. Last year, 36. That year got cut a little bit, so he probably would have scored 40 there. And then assists, 32, 33, 39, 54, 42. And so far this year, he only has scored 2 goals and 16 assists with 18 total points in 21 games. Now, he himself is also having a down season as well, and he has a $10 million cap hit, which will be kind of tough to maneuver. Now, like I mentioned with Taylor Hall, the more the season goes on, the less and less that cap hit needs to be kind of worked with, because the Celtics won't have to pay as much, right? Now, to acquire a stud like Jack Eichel, it's going to take a lot. The package is going to have to be massive. Now, what would the Bruins have to give up? Well, let's just say draft picks. You got to start with at least 2 first-round draft picks and probably multiple picks after that in later rounds. Second, 2 twos, I don't know, whatever. But 2 first-round picks starting point. Then you're going to have to include some top prospects or young NHL roster players, such as I could see a Jake DeBrusk going, a Jack Stadnyko, maybe a Trent Frederick. Now, obviously, trading Jake DeBrusk would kind of diminish that top 6 forward situation that you have on the second line, because he is your second string left forward alongside David Krejci. But bringing in Jack Eichel, it is well worth it, trust me. And then obviously top prospects as well. Bruins don't really have top prospects, so it's going to be kind of interesting to kind of work that deal out. But a $10 million cap hit, being the Sabres, possibly clearing that would be a deal to salivate over, so you can open up your salary table and really work on rebuilding that team, whether it's through the draft, from the picks you would get and acquiring from trading Jack Eichel, or just going out there and trying to buy some free agents as well. He would be a much needed fit for the Bruins on the top 6 if he was traded here. Hometown team, obviously he's from Chelmsford, I believe. Yeah, Chelmsford born, and I would love to see Jack Eichel in a Bruins uniform. I mean, like I said, he would put you over the top in terms of that firepower, so just really think about that. I know he's a center, he's not a forward, but you can make things work around. Trust me, you'll make things work if you can acquire someone like him. And I mentioned this before. I mentioned that Jack Eichel, Patrick Kane, when the Penguins weren't playing all too well, Sidney Crosby maybe, but Penguins are obviously in it as they're ahead of you, so they're not going to be trading any of their pieces, but the Sabres could definitely trade a couple of their pieces away, and I think Jack Eichel, though it is a pipe dream, could be something that you could look ahead to. With all that being said, I know we talked about the Bruins, we talked about the Celtics, and trading, and it was all about trading today, which was fun. I mean, when I play Madden or 2K, MLB The Show, franchises, I love making trades. I love the draft. It's so fun and interesting. So talking about this, talking about trading, talking about the draft is exhilarating. And obviously with the NFL draft coming up, I got to get my abbreviation correct. With the NFL draft coming up, we're going to be diving right into Patriots news, of course. There's still some rumors out there, and rumors starting to flurry again that the Patriots might try to take a quarterback in the first round. That'll be interesting to discuss, but we'll just have to wait until next week, and obviously when more reports come out, for us to talk about said topics. But in reference to today's topics, I really hope you enjoyed everything we talked about in terms of the Celtics and the NBA trade deadline, and then obviously kind of catching you up to speed with the Bruins and what they could look forward to as their trade deadline approaches in 17 days or 2.5 weeks. But nonetheless, I can't stress it enough. If you enjoyed this video and you're watching on YouTube, please hit the like rating down below. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing for more Murph's Boston Sports Talk content and YouTube exclusive content as well. And if you're only listening on audio only platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, whatever, consider checking out the YouTube channel. You might have some fun over there watching whatever I'm doing over there. But if you're listening, I should say, on audio only platforms, please reach out to me on Twitter, on Instagram. Let me know what your thoughts are. Give me your comments there, your takes, whatever. I'd love to have a conversation with you over there as well. That's what this podcast is all about. Engaging in discussions, generating conversation, and if we're debating, then we're debating. But nonetheless, thank you so much for joining me on Friday's episode of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. Hopefully I was able to help you get through your week, and as you look ahead to the weekend, I will see you on Monday's edition. Thank you so much for downloading, thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for enjoying. Until next time, as always, I will see you later.